name is Tash Mitch. I'm an energy alchemist, and today it gives me so much pleasure to welcome Keone Hanalei. Keone, I came across Keone and his work through Maria Stella and Magdalene Voices, so thank you, Maria Stella. And he is basically a healer and a keeper of Fern Medicine, and has had a long lineage of healing and a long lineage of basically nature medicine. And today we're really going to be looking at ceremony, because in the interview that I saw him with Maria Stella, there was a reference that was made to ceremony. And there was also, it really tapped me because it reminded me of how much we've forgotten about ceremony, how much we've forgotten about the importance of our presence. So it's such a pleasure to have you here, Keone. And your company is Pohala, is it? That's how you pronounce it?
Yes, it's called Pohala. Pohala is a Hawaiian word. It means to recover consciousness. And I just feel like, you know, the time is ripe for humanity at this new shift that we're experiencing. And that's what's happening, is we're all just awaking from our stupor. And mahalo, thank you so much, Tosh. This is such a blessing to connect with you and to speak further about Fern Medicine, how it correlates with ceremony and our emotional intelligence, our presence within emotional intelligence and ceremony. So I'm just feeling just so blessed and just so much gratitude. Mahalo, thank you.
Same here, absolutely. So let's just, before we do anything, just bring mindfulness into Fern Medicine and how you got into Fern Medicine.
Sure. Yeah, as you sort of spoke of in your intro, Fern Medicine was taught to me by my elders, specifically my grandmother, Kawiki Onalani, and she was what Hawaiians we call a kahuna, or a medicine holder. And that line goes back many generations of female elders in my ohana, the wahine. And during this new shift that we're experiencing, it's a feminine shift. I was actually chosen a male avatar to neutralize the shift. It went back at least 2,000 years of it all being females. And so just the fact that I was chosen as a male is proof that there is a recognition that we are experiencing a feminine shift now. And so Fern Medicine is all about emotional intelligence. In the Hawaiian pantheon of ferns, we have 103 indigenous and endemic ferns that correlate to 103 human emotions.
Wow.
So for humankind to ascend, we must be in pure collaboration with our emotions within their essence. And code it within the fern spores is the mathematical equation of those emotions, so that we can resource them and understand our emotions. Because as it was told to me, a majority of mankind, we don't understand our emotions. And we meet them in two different polarities. We never meet them in their now, in the moment. Either we meet our emotions with aversion or fear, we're afraid of them, we don't want to collaborate with them, or we meet them with a sense of craving and lack. We don't feel we have enough of it, we want more of it. How can we control it to make it stay? So very rarely can we just pause and integrate our emotions as they want to be expressed. And that's why ceremony is necessary, because ceremony is all about presence. It's all about the pause and the recognition of the moment, so that whatever we are channeling, whatever we are meeting, it's allowed to express itself without control. This is very significant. And that's the basis of Fern Medicine, sister. Emotional intelligence within the now.
Fantastic. Oh my God, the part about emotion and the part about feeling your emotion is just such a big one.
Yeah.
Because, so, you know, I think our present day society invites us more than anything else to shut down, you know, to shut down on emotion, to not express it so much, to keep it under lock and key, or to keep it at least in the private sanctuary of our own home, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Um, and yeah, that sort of sense is, unless we're actually feeling our emotions, we can't feel our passion, we can't feel our purpose, we can't feel what we're resonating with. And so there's so much of bringing that back into, you know, and not being ashamed or afraid of it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you said the golden word, shame. And especially within the masculine dynamic, a lot of men have been taught to avoid emotions, shameful. And so that's what, you know, we men are working with, is learning once again how to be vulnerable, how to be tender, to know that's our birthright, and it's something that lives within us, and to access those feminine aspects within us so that we can ascend and we can be neutral with our sisters. So it's a great challenge for men right now to heal the masculine before we complete this feminine shift.
That's a big one, because there's such a talk about yin and yang. But what we're going to do is we'll take this essence, this quality of and texture of the conversation in terms of ceremony, and we're going to reference it through our energy centers, basically, and how it shows up in each of our energy centers. So if we go to the root and we go to the base of ourselves, we go to the body, basically, and our physical entity. And really the source of our presence. When you think of ceremony and you think of our physical expression, what comes up for you then?
Our physical expression, fluidity comes to mind. And, you know, with our root, I believe it's part of our survival. And how we function in order to survive. So when I think of fluidity, when I think of ceremony, when I think of the root, I'm thinking of understanding our needs.
Yeah.
And allowing it to begin and end there, and not to go into excess, but to recognize our basic needs for what they are, and to be fluid within that, meaning to be motivated to accommodate that part of us so that we can move up, you know, to a point of pleasure. But but to recognize what it takes for us to survive, to be nourished, and for the story to end there, not to go into excess and not to go into escape. So works, the root works. And what is a ceremony within doing works is really honoring what nourishes us. My grandmother, she told me, she said, you know, everything you do must be a ceremony. Only then will your entire life be an act of worship. So even the things, when we talk about survival, sometimes it's a burden. I have to work, I have to labor, I have to do these things that maybe I don't enjoy. But what ceremony tells us is to be present within that, and to honor it, and to treat it as a victory.
The actual physical expression, and treating that as a victory, you know, treating life as a victory in that sense, is because I started this conversation right before we got started, but that sense of so much, we've forgotten so much of this, you know, we've forgotten so much of how our presence brings us into a level of communion with nature, a level of communion with the world around us. And also that sort of sense of feeling into our bodies as well, you know, that communion with our own physical body. It's so incredibly essential, but it's something that actually, like I say, you know, most of us are trying to get out of our bodies in our Western world, you know. So to actually bring ourselves and bring our minds back into the center and the core of who we are as a physical entity. Massive.
Massive. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, when we think about the root and that being a progenerator, if we're already meeting the progenerator with a sense of burden, how can we nourish as we go up the ladder of our energy field? So I remember we used to, you know, pick mangoes to eat for lunch, and I would try to grab one. She said, She says, ceremony, commune, talk, ask permission. She says, that's ceremony. It's practical.
Yeah.
We don't have to get out our shrouds and get sea salt and do the ceremony.
Yeah.
That's not necessary. It's present, as you said, sister. It's just present. She says, be with the mango, ask the mango, look into the field of the mango, honor its life cycle. And then it says, yeah, I'm ready to offer myself. She says, that's ceremony. And that's survival. That's going to nourish me. My avatar can grow strong, and I can fulfill my contract here on Earth reality in the avatar.
Oh, I love it. So when we bring this energy up into the sacral, we're bringing this energy up into our sensuality and our sexuality. And again, that sort of sense of ceremony, that sense of honoring, that sense of bringing presence and mindfulness. What comes to the fore with that when you think of ceremony and the sensual body?
That, you know, in my opinion, that is the point where we connect with others. And sensuality, sexuality, that is where I believe that there's that initiation, reverence for one another, where we come out of survival and then we go into how we really collaborate and experience others, not just ourselves.
Yeah.
And I spoke a little bit about the mango, you know, that because it's a sentient being.
Yeah.
But also that when we move into really acknowledging our brothers and our sisters, the ceremony of being present for one another, of acknowledging, recognizing someone else, that's empathy, that's compassion. And that presence is so important because we're social creatures. And a lot of our well-being, you know, it can stray away and we rely on others to validate us. So if we remain neutral and we meet people at their level, perhaps we don't need that validation anymore, because there's this, we call it in Hawaiian, aka. It's the umbilical cord that is to all creatures, to all planets, cosmos, to all our brothers and our sisters. There's a healthy transmission in the aka cord with one another. So when I feel the sacral and ceremony, I feel the true bonding with others, being present for others, recognition of others, and receiving that in return, because the space is neutral.
That is actually moving us into the solar plexus, because for us to be present with others and to be, you know, honoring and sacred with others, basically we need to actually have that feeling within ourselves. You know, we have to have honored ourselves and seen ourselves as being sacred. And this is where, you know, the energy is kind of like when I see the sacral and I see the solar plexus, when I see the honoring of others and honoring of self, they're so intertwined, because you can't do one without the other. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's really hard to kind of really meet somebody where they are and not sort of, you know, want to merge your energy with them or want to grab something from them if you haven't first really honored yourself and really recognized what you're bringing to the center of that exchange. Yeah. So when you think of the solar plexus and you think of identity and you think of, you know, individuality, presence as an individual, unique individual template, what comes up for you there?
Well, so the solar plexus in the Hawaiian belief system, we call it the opu, and that's it's also the space of the warrior. And so it's our level of presence and our level of recognition of situations. And what's really significant about that is that the warrior in the Hawaiian belief system, there's no violence. So that word warrior has kind of been contaminated. So the warrior is someone, and going back to the solar plexus or the sacral, it's about being in a neutral space. And so how do we perceive and how do we recognize, how do we acknowledge the situations around us? Of course, the situations can involve other sentient beings, but they also can involve how we perceive the world around us. Are we happy about the world around us? Are we satisfied? Are we fulfilled? Or do we sense that we have lack? Do we have shame? Do we have resentments? Is it not enough? So the warrior, the opu, can view the situations as in a neutral space so that there is a sense of fulfillment. So once again, a great example is viewing natural disasters as justified and not to resist what our planet is offering us, the power that it offers us. So seeing these situations and honoring them, allowing them to express themselves without the attempt to control them. And that is how we ceremonially honor the situations around us. Hawaiian belief system, it's the opu, the solar plexus.
That's a tough one, isn't it? The kind of like withdrawing control, right? Allowing them to play out the way that they need to, Yeah, that's one that needs breathing and space in order to really embody that, right?
Yeah. The female elders would tell us, the Hawaiian female elders would tell us, they say nothing is a burden, especially when we talk about opu and we talk about these situations that are occurring. We can perceive them as inconveniences, but they're never burdens. So we're never victimized by them. We're just experiencing them and sort of just feeling our way out of them, through them. We're transcending them.
Yeah.
But they said, never a burden.
Yes, and that's when you're meeting life fully, right? You're meeting life from the fact that like life has your back, that basically you're in it together.
Yeah, and that's when we're touched by life. And no longer numb. And this, sister, our culture now is so many are escaping by being numb. And all these, when we talk about solar plexus, situations that steer us into becoming numb, it's saying you're no longer touched by life. So we have to be so strong and withstand these inconveniences so that we can remain being touched by life, and our link to nature, our akka cord with nature and all sentient beings, all cosmos, all planets, all dimensions is still just blown wide open.
When you were speaking just then, I was getting a sense of your feet on the earth and getting a sense of your relationship with the earth beneath your feet and getting a sense of the communication of the earth beneath your feet. And it feels like that relationship is really, really beautifully formed. Your relationship with earth energy is really beautifully formed. When you actually bring that earth element up into the solar plexus, is there a message that comes forward with that?
Yeah, and because let's talk a little bit about burden. When we feel so burdened and we view this gift of earth reality, which is, the gift of this is really incomprehensible. And my tutu grandmother and the female elders would say, do you realize that light beings, they put themselves in a situation of time recognition so they can wait to come here. And they wait eons, because being within a reality, a dualistic reality where all emotions can be experienced simultaneously, that's the energy that creates cosmos. And it's what's in our avatar, but yet so many of us walk around saying, I want to leave because this is a burden. So when I am rooted on Honua, on Gaia,
yeah,
and I'm getting all those antioxidants and I'm getting all these transmissions, all it's saying is, relax. All that is required is your presence.
Yeah.
This your quality. That's all that's required of you. And then, whew,
yeah.
you sure? Be like, all right, I can do that.
Yes, that sort of sense of you don't have to be anything or you don't have to do anything. It's all there, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And can you accept yourself that way? You know, can you accept the simplicity and the elegance of how you're made and really appreciate that? You know, that's really what comes out of the solar plexus. You know, that claiming and owning and respecting and honoring all that you've been given by this avatar, like you say, right? I love that way that you say the avatar.
Yeah. You know, when we live in like a dualistic reality,
yeah,
you know, we're in recognition of our spirit, and so many of us are doing the work to recognize our light being and our spirit. But so many are forgetting the avatar. Care for the avatar. This is our vehicle. We can only be on earth reality because this vehicle exists. Otherwise, we'd float away. So the recognition of this body and that it's this powerful vehicle, you know, and that's what even Gaia says. Gaia says your avatar, your organic avatar, is part of me. So honor your avatar to honor me. Honor me, honor your avatar. It's one and the same.
Whoa, that's coming right up into the heart, actually, because that's that's coming up to the sacredness of honoring, you know, the sacredness of honoring. The reciprocity is something that comes up in the heart, that element of giving and receiving and the equal flow of that, which is always occurring, but it's the knowing of that. Do you know what I mean? It's the knowing that what you give, you receive, and what you receive, you give. And when that is tied with the physical honoring that you were just saying, or the honoring of the avatar, it's that sort of sense of really, yes, really understanding what you're giving and receiving, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the pu'uvai, the heart chakra, the way that the Hawaiian elders teach it is that this is the place of self-love, self-recognition. And the only way that we can advance up the ladder and then finally experience transcendence and to ascend is for that self-recognition. And you spoke about it when we were talking about being linked to Gaia, to the earth, and saying, I accept all these qualities of me. I'm not flawed. I am purposeful. I am meaningful. In our culture today, we are told that we need to imitate synthetics, that the things that make us wonderful, beautiful, brilliant should be rejected. This is where it needs to be resolved in the pu'uvai, in the heart chakra. So how willing are we to be present with ourselves? Can we sit with ourselves for just even a moment without gadgets, without distractions, without being entertained to death, without taking a pill, without drinking alcohol? Can we sit with ourselves just for a moment and say, I'm present, I experience you, and I accept you? It's very difficult for people.
Yeah. Well, listen, knowing that is even important. Do you know what I mean? I think we've forgotten, some of us, that is actually really, really highly important. The connection, the reconnection to self, you know, with a sense of love and appreciation and embrace. it takes space and it takes a bit of time of turning the lens inwards. But yeah, we're so distracted these days by so much, you know?
Yeah, and I was told this by my tutu, and she was told this before her, that that at this stage, within the shift of the feminine shift, this feminine shift is so profound, we can't even fathom it, that the synthetic energies are going to try anything to seduce us into falling out of this shift that's so monumental. We can't even fathom what's going to happen when we complete this shift. That's how monumental it is. So it says we are being saturated with data, so much data, but we have to realize that not all data is knowledge. Right? So we are just saturated with all this information, and so many of us are treating this information like gospel. But it's really, most of it is not of quality. So we're just weighing ourselves down when we talk about being light beings and having vibration. We float. We float. But because we're being weighed down with all this useless data, and that we're being seduced that this data is of quality or it's knowledge, we are just so pulled into gravity. Really, really stifling our fluidity and our ability to really just get sucked into this feminine shift. I tell you, the elders spoke of this time, and I didn't even know it was going to happen in my lifetime. So this is like so exciting, you know?
Yes, yes. The thing about the data and the thing about actually being overwhelmed with data, I feel like it comes from, and I've recognized that in myself, so I can't actually sort of take myself out of that equation. It's like, you know, that sort of sense of like, we need something to complete us, right? It's like that little bit of knowledge or that little bit of information or that little bit of something on the outside is a thing, it's a kind of like lock. The key to the lock or something like that. That's the kind of feeling of it. And I've witnessed a lot of people, including myself, like running around trying to find the missing piece of information without actually really understanding that the missing piece of information is on the internal rather than the external. It took me a lot of running around to figure that out, you know, and then to realize, oh my God, like it's hidden inside of me. Now it's time to come inwards, you know?
Yes. Oh, yes. And, you know, the ferns teach us this because the ferns are the only species on this planet who have achieved what is known as evolutionary stasis, which means that they have reached their evolutionary ceiling. They need not evolve any longer. They now involve. And that's why they're able to hold the codes of human emotions, is because they cannot be contaminated by any more data. They simply will not recognize any more data. They only recognize quality. And what's profound, and what you're just saying, sister, is that the human beings are at that brink too, where we have evolved to the point where the densification is complete. So now, are we courageous enough and are we wise enough to recognize this, to let go of attachments, our cravings, and to involve? That's, so I'm totally resonating with what you just said.
And that is so in the heart, isn't it? That involution, that coming home.
Self-love, self-recognition.
Yes, absolutely. And then when we bring this up, when we bring this energy up into the throat, we bring this energy up into our vibration and our voice and our truth, right? And the recognition of all of that and the honoring of all of that. I have to say the honoring of truth, it is, again, it's a path that can actually be a little bit bumpy until you actually realize, well, there's actually nothing else left to do. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's the only thing you can do right now. Yeah. So when you think of ceremony and truth honoring and vibration, what comes up for you then?
Well, with the throat, it's about how we express that. So, you know, when we go from our heart space and we've been able to identify our truth, because we've evolved and we've recognized self-love. So there's no more suspicions as to who we are. We just are who we are, and now we're ready to express that. What's a challenge today with the throat chakra and ceremony within the throat chakra and expressing who we are is that we're going to be met with a lot of condemnation. We're going to be met with a lot of ridicule, and we're going to be faced with a lot of loneliness because we're no longer willing to subscribe to the culture of control. We're no longer willing to have someone else dictate who we are. We now have proclaimed our sovereignty, and there's a possibility that we're going to be outcast. So whenever I think of like the throat chakra and like ceremony within expressing ourselves and being present within that expression, is that the level of commitment has to be so powerful. And to know that when we express ourselves, who we are, when we make our proclamations, we're not expecting others to confirm that for us. And this is the culture that we live in, is that we need to be validated so much that we'll change and we'll relinquish our sovereignty and we'll just pretty much say, tell me how I should behave so you can accept me. So the ceremony of expressing ourselves, of vocalizing, any way to express ourselves, we have to be so committed to our truth.
That brings, when you're speaking about that, I'm actually being brought back down to the solar plexus and being brought back down to that sort of level of actually ownership, you know, deep ownership of self, deep ownership and claiming of all who we are. Because unless that happens, or it happens to a percentage enough that is recognized internally, then there's always going to be the outward seeking. Do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like that lack of completeness drives us, you know, it really drives us. And we become like, I don't know, like headless chickens in a way, when we haven't really honored all that of who we are, you know? Because as soon as you're looking outside for that thing that actually requires you to look inside for, you've lost the plot, right? Yeah, you've lost the game, really, because it's kind of like you will never find it, you know?
Yeah, and you know, as we move up this ladder of enlightenment, you know, once we've activated and completed all these centers, the beautiful thing is, if they're done with integrity, then we can always revert back to them as fuel.
Yeah.
So, you know, you were just describing how expressing ourselves with the throat chakra can also lead us back to the solar plexus. If we've done that in integrity, then we can revert back to that to give us the fuel so that we have that courage forward. Because as we go up, it gets harder and harder and harder. So as long as we're in our integrity as we move up, oh yeah, they're fuel. It's power packs for sure.
Absolutely. So coming up, moving the energy up to the third eye, which is our sense of insight and intuition. When you think of ceremony, when it comes to that visioning sense of ours, what comes up with you there?
Well, so that third eye, that place of ko in Hawaiian, that's a very feminine center because it's the comprehension of symbols, and it's our emotionality, and it's our intuition. So, and truly on earth reality, that's the motivating factor, is understanding our intuition and trusting it to guide us. So there's a huge, huge energy of trust within the third eye. So within a ceremony, it's, can we truly allow Earth and everyone in it to express themselves without us needing to control it or to change it? And that goes back to us being in such recognition of our self-love and our own entity and our individuality that we no longer feel the need to control others or to dictate how this planet should run. So third eye, that space of intuition, it's just this immense, immense space of trust that we allow all things to express themselves as they want within their moment. There is no cravings for the past. There are no fixations for the future. This is the space of the now. For what it is, the now, and we allow our intuition to create that neutral space within there. No more control. That's the end of control.
Wow. Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's an absolutely massive one. That sort of sense of that wanting to control is that sort of sense of not trusting. That's that sense of basically, again, and I'm coming, maybe it's me, right? I'm coming back down to the solar plexus because it's like the energy, but that sense of actually not trusting self then leads to, and not trusting the world around us through self leads to that sort of sense of wanting to control and everything, without understanding that actually everything has got a divine intelligence, a divine wisdom, and is self-governing all on its own, which is what I'm hearing when you're talking about allowing and leaving things to express and be what they are truly meant to be without trying to guide it and control it, but that trust element brings us right back down to the solar plexus of like really claiming and owning all that we are. Basically, because the template is written within us, isn't it? That divine template. Once we're able to really connect with our own divinity, there is an element of that relaxing thing that you were getting from the earth previously. When I said to you about what message has the earth got when you bring it up to the solar plexus, just relax.
Yeah.
Just relax. Everything is taken care of. There's a self-governing divine energy flow,
Absolutely. And in that space right here, that's where we're the witness. And what Fern Medicine teaches us is, it says, you conditioned human beings, you're the only ones who perceive this world in error. No other species, no other botanicals view this world in error. That nothing is in error. But human beings, because of their arrogance, we feel like perhaps things could be different, and we begin to seek alternatives. So that takes us, of course, out of our moment, out of the now, because we go into the space of a lack or a craving or aversion and escape. And ultimately control. But this center right here, this is the complete abolishment of control. It can no longer be tolerated. It can no longer be referenced. It does not have any purpose. Once it reaches here, at any point down, it's referential. We don't need to actually get our hands like dirty in it. It's referential. Okay, because what we're doing is we're detaching. And we're letting go of so much, so it stays with us so that we can reference it. But at this point, it needs to be abolished. It can no longer be tolerated.
That's coming up to the crown now, because that's coming up to, when you were just talking about that sort of sense of letting go of control, sense of letting go, basically, the element of actually. And it's so much of us have experienced that, I feel, to a large degree, the severing of our connection with divinity, the severing of our connection with the unification field, that sense that we're part and parcel of a greater picture. And we're weaved into the fabric of that picture, It's, when we're trying to control everything, is mainly because we've forgotten that. It's mainly we've forgotten, and not only forgotten, it's been distorted to a large degree. That sort of sense of a divine entity that can be angry at us or judgmental of us or punish us. That sense has created such a kind of putting over cap on this, like,
Yeah.
Trust that? Can we trust that, you know?
Yeah. You know, so in Fern Medicine, the culmination of all our experience is what we call data collapse. It's exactly what you just spoke of, sister. It's the divine detachment of all things we know and all things we actually held on to. So that's where the level of courage that we must have to say, I now release everything I've ever known myself to be. It's extremely profound. Not a lot of souls are willing to do that. That's why there's so much reincarnation. The souls who can acknowledge that, it's completion.
Yeah.
You know? And so the data collapse, there is this elder, and I asked about, I said, speak of data collapse. And he responded with, you must abandon land and founder. So it's just another way of saying everything you know, everything that you've held on to, everything that you perceive to make you what you are, now needs to be released and surrendered.
That feels like death. Okay. No, the only reason why it doesn't quite feel like death to me is because I've actually felt that in the core of my being, but even in the feeling of it, my conscious mind doesn't know what to do with that. So it just, it retracts, right? Because it's like, what does that even mean? Do you know what I mean? It's got no reference point to what does it mean to release everything that you know of yourself, and to allow the divine to inform you afresh in every moment. You know, the conscious mind can't deal with that. Well, mine, maybe other people's, but mine has like, it tries to grapple with that and it just can't do it.
Right. Oh my gosh, it's the ultimate challenge is to experience that. And there's a fern called Pohala, and it's a feminine fern, and she's the fern of emotional mystery. And she's one of the ferns, when we get to the crown, we get to data collapse, she's there to embrace us. Just fall into mystery. Just fall into it. So she's up there, she's waiting. She's like, I'm here with my open arms.
Yeah, and from what you're saying and from what I'm feeling into with this conversation, it feels like that is the reason, that's the reason we're here. In, you know, the end scenarios is that data collapse, and that really releasing and relinquishing all that we are, the complete deep surrendering of everything that we think we are and that we think we own, letting it all go to be really shown, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, we must transcend everything. Everything must move, and there's no such thing as possession. Even our avatar, even the people we love so dearly, even this planet and all the things within it that we love so dearly, nothing is possessed. So we must honor it and each other and ourselves by saying, I release you.
Keone, thank you so much for this amazing, amazing conversation. It's like, I feel expanded, I feel blessed. I feel like basically there's going to be layers of that's going to sink in over a period of time. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowing. I'm going to put all your details, you know, in the comments, etc., and also on my website. I'll put your details on there. Yes.
Thank you, sister, so much, and for this amazing topic that you've presented. I'm just so blessed to be a part of it, and it's so relevant today, and just profound gratitude. Yeah, mahalo.